Good evening. Tonight I will be discussing threats to internal and external validity. To begin, internal validity refers to how correct the research findings are. However, considerations must be made in determining the correctness of findings. Specifically, several threats exist that can hinder the accuracy of results. Threats to internal validity include history, maturation, instrumentation, testing, regression, artifact, attrition, selection, and additive and interactive effects. External validity refers to the ability to generalize results to the larger population. Threats to external validity include issues with population, ecological, temporal, treatment, and outcome. The threat of history to internal validity occurs when an event is experienced by participants as a group at some point in their lives or during the study itself. For example, the treatment of history may be a concern when making comparisons between older generations who experienced the draft and younger generations who did not experience the draft. Other examples of history as a threat to internal validity include the Kennedy assassination, 9/11, or Hurricane Katrina. Such major events as these affect those who experience them in such a way that it may affect the way that the group responds to a research study. To address this threat to internal validity, the researcher must consider historical events. Additionally, this threat often occurs in one group design studies. Therefore, a researcher should use a paradigm that requires more than one group and ultimately a control group. The threat of maturation refers to any physical or mental change that occurs during the course of a study. For example, maturation may be an issue in a longitudinal study that follows children into adulthood. Other examples of maturation include learning effects, fatigue, or boredom. Considering learning effects, if a study includes a pre- and post-test, it is possible that participants learn the test and therefore do better on the post-test, rather than do better on the post-test as a function of the treatment. The threat of maturation can be eliminated with the use of a control group that is composed of similar participants. Instrumentation threats can occur if there is a change in the instrumentation during the study. For example, in a pre- and post-test study, the researcher should introduce a threat to internal validity if he or she changes the test questions or response options. More commonly are observations, which may differ from one participant to another and from one researcher to another. If observations are not standardized and properly recorded according to the research protocol, a threat to validity could occur. To avoid issues with an instrumentation threat, researchers should ensure that a testing instrument is the same across participants and throughout the study. With regard to human observations, researchers and other observers should gain practice to increase skills in observation and follow specific protocol for making observations for the study in question. Testing threats are apparent when a participant's score on a second test is the result of their taking the test the first time, rather than as a result of the treatment itself. This could occur if participants remember their responses from the first test and therefore respond in like, or realize mistakes and correct them in the second test. Similar to the historical threat, a testing threat is more likely to occur in a one-group study. Therefore, including a control group could serve to eliminate this threat. A regression artifact occurs when groups consist of participants who significantly differ from the mean in either direction. When this occurs, results could be the result of a regression to the mean rather than to treatment effects. Again, this threat is more likely to occur in a one-group study, so including a control group could serve to eliminate the threat. Attrition occurs when participants drop out of a study and change the demographics of a group or groups. A high dropout rate could cause groups that were initially similar to become different. In these cases, it is necessary to assess the groups to determine if because of the attrition, they have become significantly different. Specifically, difference in an extraneous variable could be problematic, while differences on the independent variable would not matter. Additive and interactive effects refer to a combination of the discussed threats to internal validity. For example, a selection history threat could occur if participants experience the same historical event but respond differently on extraneous variables. A threat would not necessarily occur if they responded differently on the independent variable. In such a case, it would be necessary to determine why there was a difference in responses on that extraneous variable. With this type of threat to internal validity, random assignment is an effective method. External validity refers to issues in generalizing results and includes population, ecological, temporal, treatment, and outcome validity. A threat to population validity occurs when the sample population is significantly different from the larger population. This is common in university research because the accessible population is university students, which might differ from the target population, depending on the research question. It is sometimes difficult, if not impossible, to control for population effects to external validity. Therefore, researchers should take care when interpreting results. Ecological validity refers to generalizing results across environments. For example, a study that is conducted in the United States might not be generalizable to individuals in Europe. Therefore, researchers could use different groups that consist of individuals from different locales or environments. Temporal validity refers to the ability to generalize results over time. Again, it is typically not possible to control for this treatment to external validity in one study, aside from longitudinal studies. However, repeating a study at different times could serve to address this threat. Treatment variation validity occurs when a researcher treats participants or groups of participants differently. For example, if a researcher gives special treatment to one group over the other. The Hawthorne studies are a classic example of this type of threat to external validity because the researchers gave the treatment group special treatment, which some have suggested is one reason for the positive results that the researchers received during those studies. Finally, outcome validity refers to the ability to generalize results across dependent variables. For example, as Christensen et al. Suggested, while only one independent variable may be under investigation, several dependent variables are typically involved. If generalizations of the independent variable cannot be made across all dependent variables included in the study, there may be an issue with outcome validity. I would like to thank you for your time and patience during this podcast of the threats to internal and external validity.